I came to an odd conclusion that we're in a paradoxical reversal right now, where conservatives used to be there to protect institutions.
No, burn them down now.
Exactly, to resist change. Progressives were there to change the institutions, to make them progress. And we are at the opposite right now, where the conservatives are the ones who are trying to destroy the institutions, and the liberals are the ones who find themselves in the position of having to defend them. And I think the best defense of them is to have them change, is to update them. But we're in a topsy-turvy world. What the hell does the word conservative mean anymore? It is a meaningless word.
What do you think it means now?
What it means now? It now means Trumpism, full stop. And that's whatever he wants. And it's destruction for destruction's sake, and it's anger for anger's sake. And it's the norms of what we would have done be gone. And so I don't know how we try to recapture what we had. Were we fooling ourselves for those times of mass media when we only had a blinkered view of what society was? Maybe that is the case, and maybe we have to figure out a whole new reality.
I mean, one of the things you talk about things that have been in our history for as long as we can remember, just look back at history. One of those things globally, and particularly in Europe, has been populism. And we have had our moments, right? Yep. We have the Huey Long moments, we have the Pat Buchanan moments, the Ross Perot moments, but they're little blips that, Perot, was a pretty serious blip. Buchanan, but nobody saw this coming. We were kind of immune from both populism and socialism as large-scale political movements in America. What changed? It's not as if, what happens in Europe? Well, 2015 migrant crisis. You can kind of pick that. In France, it's a lot earlier. Yep. But that's the Algeria situation, et cetera. But there's not a huge moment in America that it seems to me. What do you make of this? And I know you write a lot about it, and we should get into that a little bit. What do you make of this moment and where it came from? Did it kind of sneak up on you? It did on me.
Yes, it did. The volume of it, the severity of it, it did, absolutely. I have to go back. I'm of an age when I can remember things. I'm older than you are. Nixon and the Southern Strategy. I think it was a case where the Republicans said, we're going to lose. Johnson is vulnerable because he signed the Civil Rights Act. And that's where this flip came in. And I think it's a mistake, and here we are, two white guys talking about this, so I want to be cautious here, but I think we cannot analyze this without race. And I think that it starts, to my mind, well, it goes back, obviously, 400 years, but it goes back in modern times, I think, to Nixon and the Southern Strategy. And a slow flip that occurs there in terms of who represents what and whom. And today, obviously, Trump and company are making a big deal about race and trying to argue that it's the white people who are put upon and ending every possible accommodation for people who have not found accommodation in the history of this country. And that's where we are now. But we don't dare talk about that.
But it's so many, if you look at the movement, it's most prominent amongst Hispanics, but also black men too, migrating towards Donald Trump and not away from Donald Trump. What does that mean if it's mostly about race?
I go back to Hannah Arendt, who says that when people are alienated from society, from their communities and from society, and Hispanic people can be and black people can be, they tend to latch on to abstract notions. And the better example to start with, I think, is abortion and guns. I don't believe that right Americans think that the most important thing in their daily lives is abortion and guns. It's an abstract notion that you can get behind. It's a signal. Similarly, when people were out there saying noxiously that people in Springfield, Ohio were eating cats and dogs, they didn't believe that. I think part of the problem is we say, well, look what they told the pollsters, look what they told the journalists. Oh my God, they believe this. What's happened to education? What's happened to the country? It's a signal. It's a loyalty test. If I'm willing to say that, then I belong to something. And this is what I belong to. And I think people are indeed angry and alienated and frustrated in all kinds of ways. And so they are then vulnerable to that siren call, as I say, of the populist.
Did we make a mistake with race by sort of boiling it down to these essential components that I don't think that so many people that were talking about it really understood, particularly when it came to Hispanics. Because there's a great variation
Absolutely.
between people. I mean, I did a lot of reporting with people that were just really big Trump fans. And I would say, like, you're a migrant or your parents were, they're like, yeah, but this is crazy. Like, and it's like they had no loyalty to this idea of being Hispanic. And, there was that survey that came out of, 95% of Hispanics had never heard the word Latinx or would never use it. And, that produced a lot of chuckles. But for me, it was like, we're out of touch. And we're talking in a sort of academic language and talking about people as if they are one undifferentiated mass. And they have very different ideas about a lot of different things.
Years ago, I was a Sunday editor of the Daily News here in New York, and I couldn't keep a job. And I remember the marketing director there lecturing. Everyone knew who came into the paper and said, "Don't you dare talk about Hispanics as if they are one community. They are not. It's many diasporas, many communities, many cultural views. Same with Black America. It's not a Black community. That's ridiculous. And when we try to put people into those external definitions is when we get in trouble. Mass is one of them. I think we started with mass media and mass marketing, just trying to advertise to everybody. But then that wasn't efficient. And so we invented demographics and psychographics. And we put people into labels that were not their own. They were imposed upon them. And Hispanic is one of them. My students who come from countries in South America also had never been referred to as Hispanic before. Yeah. That was an invention here to lump people together.
A lot of whom are white too. I mean,
that's a whole other question. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you could say you're Hispanic and your father can be the ambassador from Argentina whose parents were from Europe and from Spain. What do you think that the mistakes? I mean, I've heard you talk a lot, both on social media and the writing you've done about the right, which is obviously what alarms you right now. It's what's going on in D.C. Do you look at the left, I mean, your comrades on the same side, and
Fellow
say,
travelers.
This is what you did wrong. This is what we did wrong. Because, everyone's talking right now. What's happened to the Democratic Party? What are they going to do? We're not hearing anything from them. I'm looking for the autopsy to say, okay, we can say that, the right was very good at exploiting culture war issues, for instance. What did the left, not what they should do in the future, what did they do wrong in the recent past?
I'll play your game, but object to it to this extent. I think we do have to look forward.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying one is
Right,
the
no,
other.
no.
But yes, but if you were to look back, so you
look-
don't have to repeat those mistakes for the future, what would those be?
I'm not sure that there's a simple formula. I was a Kamala Harris fan from 2016. I got to pull my hat and my hoodie back out in this
Really?
election. Oh, yes.
Wow.
I was for her first and was impressed with her for a long time. And I think we have to grapple again with the fact that she was a Black Indian woman and this country was incapable of electing that person at this time. And that's
Do you think
not
that was
her
the
fault.
main reason she didn't get elected?
Well, she had a 100-day campaign. There were all kinds of reasons. I think she was attacked unfairly. I think her campaign wasn't perfect. We could dissect all of that. But I think we have to deal with race and gender foremost. But that doesn't help us much, right? Are we ever going to, can we imagine Pete Buttigieg being elected to the White House? Is this country ready for a gay man with children? I don't know. How do we parse the various prejudices of the population as a whole? Now, I'm here all the time saying mass is dead. There is no mass. Mass is an insult. The one time we need a mass is to elect a president. The one time you need to put people together into a coalition then. So there was a lot of talk about the Obama coalition and how it fell apart. We're not good at coalition building, I think. I think that's a huge problem that we have.
But Obama, how did that happen then? We have a Black president who's elected for 2 terms and being up against, a lot of conservative media that basically said he was a Maoist and he was a Muslim and he was not even born in the United States. I mean, there's a lot of crap being thrown at him, and I'm keeping this separate from, policy differences. How does that happen in the number of people that we've seen, and we know this for a fact, that went from voting for Obama to voting for Donald Trump?
I think it was a different time. I think the norms, again, were different. I think the Overton window was
You think we got more
tightly
racist?
closed. Yeah, well, no, you could say it. You were allowed to say it. That's what Donald Trump has done more than anything else. I can say these obnoxious things, and so can you now. You're welcome.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we stand. So we got other problems in the Democratic Party. I think right now a lot of attention being on age, and I'm not sure that David Hogg's strategy of trying to go after everybody if they're over a certain age is necessarily going to be productive. But he's right to the extent that the party is too old. They're dying in office. We have 3 vacant seats in the House. That's a huge problem. I think that the populace as a whole looks at the Democratic Party and doesn't see exciting people. And then we see some people in the party. I mean, this week I'm mad about people thinking that Rahm Emanuel is anybody to follow. He should go to an island with Fetterman and now with Newsom. And they're trying too hard to go to the so-called center, the mythical center that doesn't exist. And they're trying to call us woke, and they're buying into the framework of the right. That's the wrong thing to do. We have to have a positive message, a positive vision, a positive framework of what we're going to do. You know, the person who impresses me more than anybody else right now is AOC. She's turned into a very mature, smart politician, and the party's not treating her well, and that's not smart. Look what she and Bernie
Do you think they're not treating her well because the idea in the mainstream Democratic Party is she's too left
Yeah,
for
probably.
us to win
Yeah,
an
I think
election?
so.
You disagree with that, I presume?
No, I think that's what I think they think.
Yeah.
But I don't think she is now. I think she's shown herself to be a mature stateswoman, and she's done the right things at the right moment for the bigger vision. And I think that she would do that. Now, whether she's a presidential timber at this point, I'm not suggesting that. But the party was foolish to put, not to speak ill of the recently dead, a dying man into the role that she could have enlivened in a time of great ethical crisis in Congress. She's the one who should have been there.
You mentioned David Hogg and age. You're a media critic. You've been writing about this. You're a journalism professor.
I'm also old.
You're also old. You said it. I didn't say that.
It ain't
Look that up.
prematurely
Can we
gray.
check and see if he's old? I think he's faking it with this gray hair. You know, the last couple of weeks, we've seen a news cycle that was about journalism, about how journalism responded to Joe Biden's age and health, and this Jake Tapper book with Alex Thompson. You rolled your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I take it that you're not a fan of the book or you're not a fan of the discourse. What is it that bugs you?
The discourse. I haven't bought the book, and I don't plan to. I used to know a journalist named Jake Tapper. I think that this book is rather shameful and not
think
totally
it's
productive.
shameful?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
Because I think the problem in this country right now is in the White House. And to keep going back and kicking Joe Biden out of the bus is not terribly informative. And I don't think that, I think a lot of the reporting is being questioned right now.
But you don't think that reporting should have been done in the first place because there's a greater threat in the White House?
Pretty much, yes.
Really?
Yeah. You can always report, you can always do it. But
you have
Tapper
people that are
and
just
Thompson-
coming off a campaign who are very eager to talk and say, I didn't want to say this during the campaign. This is according to Tapper and Thompson, because we wanted to win and we didn't want to this. But now that pressure
also finding blame. They were in charge of the campaign, and they were trying to find somebody else to blame for their
politics.
loss.
Yeah, that's politics.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there aren't issues there, okay, but that's not what should be foremost in our mind. And Tapper and company are out there hawking the book, and television is helping them do it, and I don't think it's very productive.
But so what would you say looking backwards now? Should we stop looking backwards at all?
No, of course not. Of course not.
I'm particularly about Biden and about the Democratic Party and about how they handled this issue, because I think that does help to explain how we got here, right? That the Biden, there were a lot of people that were pretty annoyed by that, particularly after the debate, and then the switcheroo, and there's no open primary. There was a lot of annoyance about that stuff.
You're not going to win an election with a hair shirt on. So again, to go to Rahm Emanuel and John Fetterman and Newsom, they're all trying to complain about the party and throw darts at the own party as if that's going to somehow win an election. That's not going to do it. That's not what got the crowds out from AOC and Bernie. They got the crowds out because they said, we're going to fight for you, and we understand where you are, and we're empathetic with it, and we're going to come up with something that helps you. That's the only thing you can do in politics ever.